Thank you all for logging in and participating in this meeting this morning. As I said, we're going to give a minute or two for a few more people to join in, and then we'll get started with our agenda. I will share the agenda. We'll be starting with the water quality topics today, and then moving on to the climate pollution reduction grant update from our SSG consultants. As I said, we do expect we had a lot of registrations. Who knows how many actually show up. Encourage folks to simply put your name and the organization you're representing today in the chat as a way of introductions instead of us going around the table. Okay. Where are we now? 26. Sharing. All right. I will get us started in the interests of being respectful of everyone's time. Thank you, everyone who has signed in. I appreciate, again, all of your attendance. As you can see, or as you could have seen, our agenda starts with our water quality issues. I'm going to give a bit of an update on our outreach to communities in Darke County. And then that'll be very brief. And then I can see that both of our speakers are here for our main topic under the water quality, which is the proposed update to the facility planning area for Tri-Cities in the Huber Heights area. Aaron Sorrell and Ken Conaway, are you all set and ready? You'll be able to share your screen in a moment.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, thank you, Aaron.
Ready here, so I couldn't find my mute button.
So let me start by, I have just a small presentation here. Okay, so what are you seeing? Oh, I don't know how to make that not happen. So I won't worry about it. Okay, just want to give you an update again on the outreach that we have done for the Darke County communities. Again, the general purpose here is that we're looking to proactively seek updates to facility planning areas across the region by by making a you know, a bit of an outreach or a bit of a request on our own rather than waiting necessarily for people to show up with emergency updates. We sent baseline packets of data to every community to review. That allows them to decide if there's a need based on what we're seeing and what they see for any kind of an update. The purpose is to avoid sort of last minute emergency changes. So this is an example of some of the baseline data we're sending out. I'm using Greenville as an example, where we're sending them a map that shows the FPA area, which in this map is shown in blue, and what we know for the current service area for sanitary sewers, which is that yellow color. And then we're asking if the information is correct in terms of sanitary sewer area, and if there are any needed updates to the FPA. We also send out census population data and projections for each community. It's all based on the 2020 census, and then also the population projections based on the Ohio Department of Development, which is county-based. So that's kind of a broad brush, but we'll be asking each community, what do you think of these population projections? Does this sound like it's in the ballpark at least? And then we have done an analysis of reported flow rates based on your reporting to Ohio EPA through the DMR system, discharge monitoring reports system through Ohio EPA based on your permits. We did a quick analysis based on your reported flow rates and how that relates to your rated flow capacity for the facility. This is again an example for Greenville, showing that most days are well below 80%, well below 100% of their rated capacity. And then asking if there are any planned or needed plant upgrades to service your area. And it helps you answer these questions about where is your community growing, how much population will you be serving in the year, in the future? Will the way you develop be dense development that will need sanitary sewer service or not? How much flow do you expect in the future? How's your system looking? Are there any bottlenecks in your collection system? Is your treatment facility able to meet your permits? Will it be able to meet your permits given the future flows? And how much public involvement has gone on around, or public information has been going on in your community regarding these questions and services. And then, so here's sort of the progress so far. Again, the letters went out to all the communities in Darke County that have an FPA in early February, and follow-up emails went out in mid-February. We received some responses back. All those communities there in that green box have told us they're good, no changes needed. Those two in the yellow box have informed us of some potential changes that are needed. And then we are still awaiting response from some other communities in the blue box. And just to update you on those possible change or needed changes, Village of North Star, a very small village at the northern end of the county, has indicated that there is a planned new development of new homes on the east side of the village that would be outside the current FPA. And we're working with them to assist them in developing an FPA update proposal for a future meeting of this. It's not going to be on today's agenda. Village of Versailles also informed us that they are currently updating their comp plan and land use plan, and that they anticipate there will be a need for a future FPA update, but it's not timely yet. And so we're going to wait to hear from them when they think it's ready to put together a formal proposal and bring it again through this committee. So that is where we are. I'd be happy to answer any questions about that process. We plan on repeating that process in there are other 5 counties in future quarters, future years. Any questions about any of that? Okay, hearing none. I will, oh. You're just doing this for counties.
Yeah, sorry. I'm new kind of to the committee. This is Meg. And I was just wondering, like, if we wanted that to be done for the village, how we could get prioritized for that.
Well, we could we could certainly generate a package just for a particular community that was interested in thinking this through. We were just sort of grouping the various communities with their own FPAs by county. That's why we started with Dark, because it being a rural county, none of the FPA boundaries bump up against each other. So that just makes it removes that complication, right? So it was a good way a good place to start in terms of sending these out, testing out our formats and our process. But we can certainly generate one for Yellow Springs and send it to you if you want to just take a look at it. But we were planning on doing Preble County next, followed by Greene County.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. Okay. Well, if any other questions occur to any of you, or you want to take a look at what might be coming for your community, you can just reach out to me or Rebecca Carr here at MVRPC, and we can talk to you about updating your FPAs. But I will now turn it over to Aaron Sorrell, who is on staff at the City of Huber Heights, and Ken Conaway, who is with Carriage Trails, to share with you the presentation regarding the proposed update for the Tri-Cities FPA. Tri-Cities serves 3 communities, including Huber Heights, Tip, and Vandalia as well. So thank you, gentlemen. Good morning. You should be able to share your screen.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. I'm Aaron Sorrell, the Assistant City Manager at Huber Heights, and Ken Conway is with Carriage Trails. He's going to go over the development specifics and why we're requesting the FPA adjustment. And then I am going to go over the planned improvements, some that are underway, some that are in design process for the Tri-Cities wastewater plant. So let me share my screen here. Can you see the
Yes, we can.
Okay. Ken, take it away.
All right. I'm Ken Conaway. I'm with Carriage Trails. I've been there since 2007 when we undertook the development. We're going to go ahead and move to the next screen, Aaron, please. Start with an overview of where we are, in case you're not familiar with Carriage Trails. We are north of 70 between Brant Pike 201 and Troy Pike 202. And the original Carriage Trails development is about 700 acres and 1,500 homes that are already in place. So move to the, we'll start zooming in on this. Aaron, next screen, please. So there you can see an enlargement. The area outlined in orange is what we're talking about today. It was recently annexed into Huber Heights. Next screen, please, Aaron. We'll show the kind of the better depiction of it with all the lot build out and the area. And if anybody has any questions, just go ahead and stop me while I'm going through here. I believe our next, Aaron, skip to and go to the full plat. So there's the plat of the area in question. So it's 300 acres. It's in Miami County. All Carriage Trails is in Miami County. This area is not in the FPA of Tri-Cities. It's in the Clark County Sewer District, and it's managed by Miami County. So go ahead and go to the next screen, Aaron. I'll talk a little bit while we're on this one. So at Carriage Trails, we came in 2007, began working with the City of Huber Heights on Carriage Trails. If anybody recalls what it looked like back then. The parkway was barricaded. A golf course developer had come and started the development, and the city of Huber Heights committed to put a roadway in that you see, that Carriage Trails Parkway at the bottom of this slide. 2.5 miles divided parkway the whole way from 201 to 202. So of course, we started in the middle of a housing recession, and only were able to start because we developed a deal with Huber Heights, given that this was in a TIF district, that they worked to assist us in installing the infrastructure. So we used the TIF that was in place to start to install the infrastructure. A very complicated development agreement was finalized in 2009 that included some stipulations that we were bound to over the years. One of those stipulations was that if we ever annex this area, which if you knew Carriage Trails at all, it's kind of a natural to assume that this is how it could grow, because it was a sod farm primarily, so it just looked like big open area waiting for development. But the city wrote into our agreement that if this was ever developed, we would bring it to the city and not solicit utility service from any other municipality. So in keeping with that commitment, over the years, what we did within those 4 red boxes on this sheet were to stub sanitary, sewer, and water service to the north, fully expecting that ultimately it would be serviced through Huber Heights and Tri-Cities. We've made 2 annexation applications. The first one was unsuccessful. Part of the denial of the first annexation was an assumption that we made in our service letter that water and sewer would be provided by Huber Heights, which was consistent with our development agreement. So it was denied for a number of reasons. One of the reasons was that we couldn't make that commitment because Huber Heights didn't have the authority to service this area. It was not in their FPA. Aaron, I'm not sure what my next screen is. Okay, let's stay here for a second. So I'm sorry, let's move to the next screen. So the second annexation was successful. And while we were working our way through that, we met with Miami County, fully assuming from the comments made in the denial of the first annexation application that they were interested in providing sanitary sewer service. We worked through and I'm not sure if any of you have seen this, it's a strand study that Miami County did. And this was the selected option that they gave us for how they would service the annexed area. So we proceeded through the second annexation with the understanding that this is how we would satisfy the sewer service until we got to a point of trying to finalize the deal with Miami County, at which point in time, Aaron, I think the next slide, please. We were given a letter from their legal counsel that they would not be servicing this area. So we've gone back to, I'm not sure what my next slide is, Aaron. Okay, so let's stay here for a second. So we've come back through now to working with Huber, as we planned originally. We've come back through to working with Huber Heights and are here today because we need a map amendment to facilitate the continuation of this development. This is the area of the first phase that we have developed. And I'm sorry, we don't have developed, we have a design. We haven't even started building it yet. We hope to start this year. And then the next screen, please, Aaron. So in working with Danny and sharing information with Matt, we were asked to project what our build out would be. So based on our historical success at Carriage Trails, which we haven't had lots to sell for 2 years, so we'll have a bit of momentum to pick back up on, and I would think that the It's a little more challenging now than it was when we stopped selling lots 2 years ago. These are connection projections based on our build out schedule of how homes connect to sanitary sewer. And we've used that 2029, 2030 date because that's the date that Tri-City anticipates having their improvements ready. Aaron, I think my next screen just a pick over. Yeah. So at this point, I will turn it over to Aaron, who has more of the technical information side, unless there's any questions that anyone would have for me.
Questions for Ken? Okay.
All right. Thanks, Matt. Take it away, Aaron.
Okay. So I am just going to talk about the improvements underway at the Tri-Cities wastewater treatment plant. At the moment, I'm also the, I guess, board chair. So Danny wasn't able to be here. He's the plant director. So we have really two main projects going on. One is a equalization collection system and kind of a detachment of one of our main sewers in a line upgrade. And then the overall plant improvement expansion, which will coincide with the carriage trails developments coming online. So right now underway, we are building two additional collecting EQ systems. One is at Taylorsville Park, or Taylorsville Road right at the dam, near the dam. And then we are also creating a new interceptor called Mud Run that takes Huber Heights, kind of separates it from where Vandalia and Tip City come in, and we'll be into the plant really to reduce SSO instances. So it's a $24.1 million project, and we anticipate to be complete by December. We're actually under budget and ahead of schedule on this one. This is where the EQ tanks are being constructed at Taylorsville Metro Park, just on the south side of the spillway. As I mentioned it, we are creating or improving our interceptor sewer line, creating a dedicated line that will probably collect 80 to 90% of just Huber Heights flow and separate that from the Vandalia and Tip City. The bigger project is the plant improvement project. We haven't at Tri-Cities invested or upgraded this plant in nearly 40 years. And so it is long overdue. We are increasing the capacity from 11.2 million gallons a day to 17.3. And that's really to address the growth in both Huber Heights, Tip City, and Vandalia. We are also improving the efficiency of the system and working to create a system that complies with future EPA requirements for phosphorus, ammonia, et cetera. So right now, the proposed project is $121 million. It is under design at the moment. We are about 30% done with the design. This is the graphic that shows kind of what we're going to be doing. It's really an extensive overhaul. The biggest change is a new bio kind of sludge area that replaces some of our filters. As far as the schedule, we have completed. We're actually awarding a construction manager at risk contract to Ullman Schutte. We're working with Strand on all of the designs. Like I said, they are about 30% complete in the design. Ullman Schutte is the construction manager at risk, who is now working with Strand to improve the constructability of the plant improvements, as well as try to find cost savings on that side. We anticipate filing our EPA construction loan application in August, 100% design submissions by mid-June, and then construction beginning in mid-2026 and completion in 2029. So we are on track still for this project, and the board and its partners are moving full steam ahead. Are there questions of me?
I'll shoot one out because I'm just curious because I've never heard this term before. Construction manager at risk. What does that mean?
Yeah, so it is a kind of a recent-ish process allowed in Ohio that basically the entity, the CMAR, the construction manager at risk, gives us a top-line budget, and it's really a not-to-exceed amount. And they come in early at the design stage and work with the engineers who are designing it, and then these are also the folks who will be constructing it, and work to value engineer, improve the constructability, and really it's all about managing costs and staying on budget. So the cost overruns fall on that entity and not on Tri-Cities.
Thank you. Other questions for Aaron or Ken regarding the development and the plant upgrades?
I would say the big takeaway here is that we are, significantly increasing capacity well above what would be needed for carriage trails and the growth anticipated in Tip City, Vandalia, and also Huber.
You brought up a little bit of the history. This plant was built by the Miami Conservancy District many moons ago and turned over to Tri-Cities when they decided to get out of the wastewater treatment business.
Yeah, and there's been maintenance, but few improvements since that time.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, we have received, and it was part of your agenda packet, a formal proposal to adjust the boundary of the Tri-Cities FPA to accommodate this particular development. The orange line that was shown in the earlier slides, the earliest slides. And this is part of our process for update. So an update to an FPA boundary constitutes a plan change under the area-wide water quality management plan, which requires board action at MVRPC. So part of our process in terms of bringing things before our board is to make sure we get public input and stakeholder input. So this is part of that process. So if anyone would like to provide a comment or a thought or ask a question now, you're welcome to do that. We will also be having a public comment period for the broad general public to participate. You can also email me or Rebecca Carr with comments about this. And now I see a question that has come up. What happens to sludge? I'll read the whole question. In Maine, they have discovered that wastewater sludge put on fields 25 plus years ago and PFAS for it are showing up in cow's milk that everyone thought was organic. Aaron, I know you're not the plant manager, but do you have any thoughts about how sludge is managed from this plant?
Yeah, so let's see here if I can.
Information.
Yeah, hold on a second. Let me reshare my slide. Let's see. Hopefully, let's see. So you should be able to see this. Basically, if you can see my cursor, I don't know if you can on the, there are, okay, there are a number of farms that are owned by both City Huber Heights and Tri-Cities. And so in addition to the effluent coming down, after it's treated, we pump it back north to a number of fields where it is applied And we have a contract with actually Bowman and Landis, the turkey farms. So they raise basically turkey feed on our farms, and so that is how that's what we do with the sludge. The fields are being recertified by the Ohio EPA for that for continued land application. I will say that, you know, in the long term, we are having conversations about, you know, the phosphorus levels that may be permitted in the future, and coming up with contingency plans if we can no longer land apply to the fields that we have. So either that's buying new fields or constructing basically a dehydrator to create, I don't know what the actual term is, but sludge cakes, and then landfilling those. But right now we land apply to the north.
Okay. And regarding the PFAS issue in sludge, to my knowledge, Ohio EPA has not yet set limits on or monitoring requirements for PFAS in sludge. Although if there are any folks from Ohio EPA, and I do see that Bonnie is here, perhaps I can be corrected on that if there are issues or if there are developments in that area that should be known about. I will move on to some other. Bonnie says I am correct. Thank you. So next question from Kevin Craney, I think. What happens if all sides do not agree on the change in the FPA? So that is a consensus is an important part of our processes here at MVRPC. Ultimately, if we had objections to this FPA, the FPA proposal, you may have seen briefly the letter that was put up on the screen that was received from Miami County that basically said they were not going to be choosing to serve this area, but they would support or they would participate in any process to update the FPA so that it could be served. That's an indication there that the boundary line, the bordering FPA managed by Miami County is agreeing to this change. So bringing forward a change that has some consensus behind it in terms of the impacted stakeholders gives a degree of comfort and reassurance to our board. The facts are when the reality is that when something comes to our board where there is not agreement amongst all parties involved, our board is reluctant, does not wish to be picking winners and losers between its membership. And so they have in the past instructed staff to go back and work with the parties involved until there is a consensus agreement before that they would, pick that amendment up off the table and vote on it. So what mostly happens if there is not consensus on the update is that it is asked to be worked on some more and to find what update could achieve that consensus. Let's see. Next question from Leslie. Are there other current capacity challenges or upgrades needed or anticipated being needed in the near future? Aaron, I think you said that your projections were based on all three communities, not just Huber Heights.
Yes, that's correct. So the 17 million gallon capacity that we're moving up to is based on the growth that Huber Heights anticipates, as well as Tip City and Vandalia. And all three communities have been feeding Strand, who is doing the design, updated projections throughout the entire process, really going back to probably 2022 when this was started. So as we have development come online, or at least when we have developers show interest, we have been feeding those to the consultants to make sure that our plant is built at the appropriate capacity.
Mm-hmm. And the last question I'm seeing is from Audrey McGowan. Not only PFAS, but also heavy metals in the sludge. I am aware that the plant permits often have sludge testing requirements. I believe there are metals in those testing monitoring requirements. Bonnie, can you back me up on that? Am I right about that? You all should feel free to unmute and contribute, participate in that way as well. Let me make sure you should be able to unmute. Yep. So basically, when we do an update, when we are considering an update, or the board is considering an update, one of the factors and one of the things we ask them to write up about in their proposal is their assurance that the plant will be able to effectively treat and meet its permit limits as required by Ohio EPA for discharge, including its sludge permit, its sludge monitoring limits. So Bonnie's response is yes, there are monitoring requirements for sludge, although she doesn't know exactly what Tri-City's monitoring requirements are. They are different based on the discharges of the plants. They're tailored to the plants and the watershed that they are discharging in. So, and in Tri-City's submission, they do talk about their commitment to meeting all their permit requirements from Ohio EPA, and that the plant expansion will be, and Aaron spoke to this about the some of the technology upgrades and of course the capacity upgrade.
I think the only recent violation that Tri-Cities has had was SSO during like a 6 inch rainfall event. So we are well within and comply with all of our permits that we have. We've been recently audited.
Any other questions or comments? Any last thoughts from you all, Ken or Aaron?
I guess, go ahead, Ken.
Appreciate the opportunity to make a presentation in front of you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and if you have any questions about the upgrade of the planned upgrades at Tri-Cities, please reach out to me, and we can forward any information to you that you request.
So we've just gotten another question from Kevin. Any thoughts about looking for annexed land to be a factor in FPA lines? So yes, in this example, this particular property has been annexed. There was discussion back in 2011, the last time that the water quality management plan was completely updated and overhauled, about making that basically a sort of an automatic update for annexed ground to be automatically added to an FPA. That policy proposal was actually rejected by the steering committee and the committee of communities with FPAs, my recollection was that it was sort of too broad brush, that there were too many reasons why you might not want that to happen to make that an automatic policy. So we haven't done that. Now, typically, changing an FPA to accommodate annexed ground has generally not been not seen much of in terms of of opposition to that. So Kevin's next comment, any thoughts on updating the 14-year-old steering committee decision, seeing that no one likely around anymore from that? Well, that's a good point, is that regional plans, like any planning document, probably benefit from regular updates. And we can certainly consider updates to our FPA policies and FPA update guidelines, and again, bring them through now this committee, which didn't exist back then, and again, of course, our TAC and board for consideration. So again, if you have comments or thoughts about this particular update to the FPA for Tri-Cities, you can forward those thoughts to me by email, or you can give me a call. But I'm seeing that the conversation has sort of settled down. I'm going to say that we move on to our next. I do see that our other speakers are here for the climate pollution reduction portion of our agenda. Pretty much right on time. So that would be Fran Sid, there she is, and Yule Herbert is also here. These are two of our consultants with the Sustainability Solutions Group who are providing us the technical and engagement support for our climate action planning process here for the Miami Valley. Fran, are you all set? Yule?
Yep, I'm gonna share my screen.
Okay.
Thanks, Matt. Do you all see my screen?
We do.
Okay, nice. Okay, welcome everybody. This is just an update. I hope that most of you have been in last meetings of this committee. But if you have any questions, also feel free to ask in the chat or raise your hand. So today's agenda, very brief. It's give you some engagement updates. Then we're gonna move to review some region-wide targets, specifically related to what we want to focus today is what we rise from the engagement sessions. And then I want to have a specific activity, a very brief one, to think about the role of the MVRPC, considering the region-wide targets and thinking of future implementation. And finally, we're going to give some updates on project timelines and local pathways. So engagement updates. So I'm going to summarize this a bit. We planned for listening sessions since December last year, but it ended up happening on mid-February. We planned for 3 of them, but one of them was not very successful, but the other 2 were. So one of them was in Dayton, February 25th, and around 47 or more than 40 people participated in that one, was pretty successful. And the other one, we tried to aim for the 3 counties for the listening sessions. And the other one was in the Fairborn Fish Food Pantry, so in Fairborn. And that was in February 13, and around 8 people. If I'm wrong, Magic also correct me on that, but it was around 8 to 10 people. The objective of these listening sessions was to target low-income and disadvantaged communities and try to raise concerns from these communities and try to understand where the priorities. In terms of implementation, we're trying to focus all of this in terms of implementation. So that means what would be the needs for funding, what would be the needs in terms of sectors, which sectors would be more effective to overcome. Again? Okay. So the idea was to get engaged low income and disadvantaged communities, what we also call LIDACs, but it tried to target many type of different disadvantaged communities, considering Black people, Indigenous people, or underserved communities. And what we heard during these sessions, and after this, I can give also the word to Matt if you want to add anything else, but this is coming from the summaries. So what the most relevant sectors were to participants were buildings and transportation. So these two came up a lot, and that means that transforming this sector in particular would have a large impact on people's life. And that also followed by changes or transformation in the energy systems and also in the circular economy, or how we manage waste. And the most common topics during these listening sessions and within these sectors were so kind of revitalizing neighborhoods by investing in the built environment. That means building, retrofitting, solar panels in existing rooftops. That means taking advantage of the current commercial rooftops to install solar panels, for instance. Also focusing a lot on walking and biking infrastructure, and that was prioritized over EV infrastructure or electrification of vehicles. And that obviously makes sense because it was also right that electricity or electrification may include increase in electric bills. Another topic was so trying to focus what we usually call more compact or dense cities, but this is basically making cities more accessible for all residents. So making services more accessible, walking distance, etc. And also green spaces. So trying to make most out of the backhand lots and trying to use these spaces for green spaces and native forests and plants. A few of the enablers that we identify in this, so summarize updating all ordinances and zoning regulations. Education was a big topic for both of the listening sessions, and that is education for transportation, for waste management, for energy and financial literacy. And finally, that also came a lot during the Dayton listening session that we could identify is what we're gonna call the sense of community among residents, but this is basically residents helping each other and collaborating that will definitely raise resilience and stronger neighborhoods. I'm gonna stop there if I'm just to give time for you to process this. And also, Matt, I don't know if anything else do you want to add, or Beth that I'm missing?
Thanks, Fran. I think that's a very good summary of the two sessions. I was at both of those sessions, and I think there was a very strong sense from both of the sessions that retrofitting buildings, and they don't just mean solar panels, they meant like insulation, new doors, new windows, energy efficiency upgrades for the homes, was of greater importance than perhaps like utility scale renewable energy, wind farms or solar farms. That they were the participants in this were emphasizing the importance of lowering kitchen table kind of pocketbook kind of impacts for a house at the household level, lowering energy bills and making the homes healthier places to live, over big transformations in transportation to EVs or like I said, utility scale renewable energy. There was much more interest in how it impacted neighborhoods and households.
Thanks, Matt. Does anybody have any question about that? Because now I'm gonna move to how we connect this to the target. Great. So we try to connect this to the current target. We already offer, had a set of or a catalog of actions, but here I'm gonna show you the ones that may have more relation to the concerns that we raised during the listening sessions. And also we'll have probably the most impact, for instance, in terms of retrofit. It's a huge part of the GHG emission snapshot of the region compared to, that means emissions from existing buildings compared to new buildings. So some of the targets, we set 2 scenarios, and I'm gonna try to give you a brief summary of what we meant with the scenarios. So during the few last meetings, we collect from you and from other engagement sessions different inputs that give us a framework to understand how would the future look like for Miami Valley region, and we came with 2 scenarios that we call low carbon scenarios. This is futures, exploring futures on how would look Miami Valley in terms of GHG emissions and how much would this cost in terms of implementation. So the first one is a community first scenario, and this is what if we begin to implement all actions that are focused on community development and are focused on just transition and light acts and disadvantaged communities. And for that, we try to frame them in terms of sectors. So the Big Move 1 try to encompasses a lot of actions that are framed to reach transformation in the building sectors, and that means making it more affordable and sustainable for residents. And one of the key actions in this big move on this sector in particular that may be related to what we actually right during the listening sessions, what Matt just mentioned, so retrofit of existing buildings. So that's a big issue for communities right now. And that target in this scenario would be to achieve 50% reduction of building energy use intensity per unit of floor area by 2035, and then increase this target to 60% by 2045. And then the idea is that this reduction in energy use applies to all 100% of the building. This means residential and commercial by 2045, but with a linear increase in the number of buildings. One key element of this scenario in particular is that it would focus on social housing units first and communities with or census tracts, because that's what the modeling does in census tracts with low income communities. The second one is the transportation burden or the transportation transformation. And in this case, we collect that many people actually are more interested in active transportation, transit, etc. And in the case of the LIDA communities, this is particularly relevant. The idea would be to achieve at least 20% of the total number of trips taken by any transportation mode other than driving or car alone, drive alone by car by 2040. And this has specific targets that we are also differentiate between counties, understanding that Montgomery County, it's more urbanized and developed in terms of land development. So it could have a larger ambition. And the third one is the transition in the energy sector. So for the community first scenario, the idea is that all community-wide, they have access to 100% of carbon-free electricity generation by 2035. And this includes implementation of solar rooftops and community solar projects, in addition to transitioning the municipal buildings also to renewable energy by 2035. What's different between the energy transition scenario, which is the second scenario, is that this one is more market driven. So it doesn't place a huge focus on community transition. And we come out with these 2 scenarios that are kind of on opposite directions, but obviously both of them try to achieve emission reduction. It's basically to explore what would be the impact of the implementation of these actions. So what's different between the first one is that in terms of building, it's a bit less ambitious. So instead of achieving 50% reduction in building energy use, it achieves 20% by 2030. And then instead of 60% by 2045, it's 30% by 2040. And the second sector, transportation, place a big focus on vehicle electrification rather than active transportation and transit. But vehicle electrification would also include municipal fleets, transit, private vehicles, heavy duty, and off-road. And finally, the energy sector, the energy transition scenario aims to deploy or rapid deployment of large-scale renewable energy projects as opposed to distributed energy generations as solar rooftops or community solar projects. So before I move to the next step, I want to see if anybody has any questions so far. Okay, great. So now I want to move to what would be the role of the MVRPC in making these targets happen. So we may have specific targets for electrification of EV or transit or increasing share modes other than driving alone. But then what the MVRPC doing to make this happen? And this is the next part of the presentation that I want you to give us some input to, and I'm going to give you some proposed roles that the MVRPC can take in these 3 different sectors. So in terms of sustainable buildings or the building sector, the MVRPC could take a role in creating a region-wide network of skilled and certified contractors. It could also be coordinating training and capacity building instances for contractors, between contractors and educational institutions, but it can also have this more funding roles, so setting up incentives such as property assessment clean energy programs or regional revolving funds, where the MVRPC could be an administrator or a coordinator or both, and maybe setting up a regional retrofit fund. Well, in terms of transportation, so transportation sectors, one key element that the region already has is the active transportation plan. So implementing this plan would be a milestone for action, and that could be translated into providing funding opportunities or securing additional funding from state and federal agencies, developing communication campaigns, both for residents and businesses, and even creating a technical advisory group to support local governments for implementation of complete streets or bike infrastructures according to their local plans. And in terms of energy, so the MVRPC could take a role of coordination of electric aggregation programs, and this could be region-wide or helping local governments to access the electric aggregation program. This could also be leading by or supported by Dayton that already is part of the Subcommittee. Build a network with other cities. So as region authority or region network commission, it could also build a network with Cincinnati or Columbus to advocate for clean energy to the utility sector. And finally, promote or achieve a region-wide bulk purchasing of, well, could be solar panels for municipal buildings specifically, but could also be a bulk purchasing program for solar panels for residents. So there are some examples of other cities that have done, that have experience in terms of implementation of actions. So in this case, I want to mention the Building Energy Exchange, led Kansas City, led by the Mid-America Regional Council, or MARC, in the Kansas City region. And this particular initiative came as a result of the PCAP, or the Priority Climate Action Plan, as a way to implement the net zero target that the region had. And it kind of framed different initiatives, but we can find a few of them. So one of them could be that they are doing right now is the capital leverage for rent burden and multifamily household communities. So the initiative is working with local and national capital providers to leverage funding or federal funding and bring upgrades to available to the communities, specifically to those that have been historically undercapitalized or well, in Dayton, there's a lot of these examples. And the second one would be, second initiative they are doing is the Rising Trades Contractor Accelerator. It's a specific program, it's a business program designed to support diverse entrepreneurs, specifically in green construction and high performance building industry. And the idea is that they work with local utilities to help contractors to familiarize with the utility programs and with the new upgrades. And it also works with local collectives and businesses to target specific under or low income communities and Black, Indigenous, and people of color to help them lead the green transition. And well, this initiative in particular was born out of efforts of the MARC, but also with support of the Climate Action Organization in Kansas City, as I mentioned before, to achieve the net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. And it was supported also by the Institute of Market Transportation. Second example of region-wide organizations or commissions that are moving towards the implementation of actions is the San Francisco Bike Share Capital Program. So this program in particular provides grants to help launch bike sharing programs. So it's not basically buying the bikes themselves, but it's helping with the design of the programs in different counties across the Bay Area. And funds usually are used to support local governments to conduct the community planning process, to do the site selection and connect with the contracts with private bike share operators. So I want to stop now and give you a few minutes to think of what would be the role of the MVRPC making these targets happen. We already give you a bunch of examples, but I want to know if any of these resonates with you, or you already have a red flag with any of those that you can provide us some comments on. You can write them in the chat or unmute yourself.
Lots to think about here, Fran. Thank you. There are some of these things that already exist and that MVRPC could become more involved in. There's some of these things that would be new or might find a regional partner or a foundation to help to coordinate, to partner with on some of these initiatives. Might not necessarily need to be entirely run out of MVRPC.
This is Christy with Troy. I would agree, like the funding component of it, right? A lot of these initiatives here are exclusively depending on the money, right, to be able to do it. Obviously, everybody wants to lower their utility bill, and everybody would do it if they had the money to do it. So I like MVRPC working to help us as a region to get more funding opportunities. I do like the coordination of the electric aggregation program. I know some of us go to get, not through MVRPC, but some of us partner right through other agencies together to do that. But obviously we have more power together as a region. So that is definitely something we would support moving forward with as a broader entity.
Thank you, Christy. I note here that Meg out at Yellow Springs talked about setting up incentives, also securing funding, developing communications campaigns would be beneficial.
Thanks, Meg. Can you provide any example of the incentives that you or it comes to your mind?
Yes, Meg, if you're able, can you tell us like incentives for what in particular would be helpful for Yellow Springs?
Okay, yeah, so I was thinking along the buildings framework that you have here. I think that makes sense. For incentives or funding, I mean, both
Mhm.
make a lot of sense, just because of the way that it's structured with private developers, and especially if we want to reach some of the more disadvantaged, like you're saying.
So are you thinking about existing building stock in Yellow Springs or new developments or?
Both, I think, for us, because we have old, but we also are have some newer coming on. I mean, obviously not a high quantity as some everyone else, other organizations, but yeah, we have some new product coming on.
I can share, so this is Chrissy. One of the problems we have in our more disadvantaged areas is that a lot of our funding sources, right, they're not eligible for rental properties, right? They're only eligible for owner occupied. And then those landlords, right, aren't willing to make the improvements. And so it's their tenants that suffer who are having to pay those high utility bills. So I don't know how to do that, but if we could somehow incentivize something to help those people who don't own their own property, but really need those building improvements to save on their utility bill.
Yeah, I really like that. Yeah, that's definitely a problem we have here as well.
Thanks for bringing that up, Chrissy. Does anybody else want to join what Chrissy and Meg have mentioned?
Well, Aaron also had shared like some type of reimbursement program, just along the same train of thought, with home rental issues with rentals and getting their properties cleaned up. Maybe if we offer some type of way for owners to get reimbursed for property cleanup or maintenance.
Great. Matt, we can still share this presentation. If anybody wants to give some input after this meeting, that's totally useful for us too. So feel free to email Matt or the SSG team to provide input on this.
Yes, we'll be putting all of the presentation slides on our website for download in the next couple of days.
So we also wanted to give the project's timeline updates. So a bit of this change compared to the last time, only because we have we're targeting for a tighter timeline now, and during March and January, we identify potential policies and programs for Miami Valley region, but through this month and April, we're gonna do also financial analysis for benefits or harms. And the next meeting of the WESC will be on May, if I'm correct. And the idea of that meeting is to have a presentation of the preliminary draft of the comprehensive climate action plan for the region. It won't be finished by then, but it certainly will have the main contents. And this is a very tight deadline because after we aim to finish the draft of the CCAP by end of May, and then it goes to public commenting. So in here, I would also like to raise that we will do probably a communication push supporting Matt and the MVRPC to get comments during the public comment period. That's the main change between the last meeting, because the draft was meant by between May and July, and now it's certainly targeting by the end of May. I will also want to give you an update that we are setting up the second meeting with the local pathways. And Meg, we most probably will be contacting you this week to set a second meeting. And the idea of these local pathways is to have an output as part of the regional work that we are doing. And these outcomes are not specifically a climate action plan, but are the minimum ingredients for the cities or local governments interested in these outputs to then use them as and plan for their own climate action plan. The main outputs are a GHG inventory, the local low carbon actions pathway, and some implementation recommendations. And that's basically policy recommendations or programs recommendations specifically for these local pathways, for these local governments. Most of the actions of these local pathways are aligned with the regional targets. So we started with the regional catalog of actions and modeling, and from that it comes the local pathways. And none of these actions are less ambitious than the regional pathway. That's the main objective, but they may be increased ambitions. So in this case, we have also identified specific differences between different cities, obviously. And in case, for instance, of the city of Dayton, some scenarios may be more ambitious than the regional targets. And some other difference, like the city of Sinea might have a stronger focus on direct communities than the regional approach. And the last meeting would be to explore implementation recommendation with this local government. And that's happening by the end of March. So the second meeting will be happening the last week of March. That's when we're offering so far the second meeting. And well, as I mentioned before, the idea of our next meeting during the WESC is to present you with the low carbon pathways for both the scenarios and have a discussion about that, with also the preliminary financial analysis of actions. This is going to be in May. A brief LIDAC benefit analysis, considering all of these are minimum for the draft CCAP, and finally to explore with you two final recommendations of implementation actions. So a bit of what we showed today, but we want to get some input of final recommendations. So basically today was a proposal, a preliminary set of role of the MVRPC to move forward for implementation. But the next meeting aims to have like final or first final draft of the implementation recommendations. So I'm gonna stop there and see if anybody else have any other questions. And that's it, Matt. Thanks.
Any last comments or thoughts around the climate pollution reduction planning work that we are doing? Kevin asked a good question about the status of this funding since the change of administration. I will say that, and I did put this in the chat as well, but the grant had been suspended by US EPA for a short period of time and then resumed. And at this time, we are still able to draw down from that assistance agreement and continue this work. And we have a contract with US EPA, and we intend to fulfill all its terms, including all of the required deliverables. So that's why we're proceeding, and also proceeding on a sort of a quicker pace. Yul has his hand up.
Yeah, just to add on to that point, Matt, I think there are many, many other funding streams associated with Inflation Reduction Act, including the tax credits, including direct pay, which is specifically relevant to local governments and any other nonprofit or non-tax paying entities. And those funding opportunities are still available this year. What happens next year, I think, is still up in the air, but there is a window to use those funding options. I don't know if you'd add anything more to that, Matt, but that's, I think, still a big opportunity for everyone out there.
Yep. Yeah, I recently was able to personally confirm that you can still get the rebates on an EV, the federal tax rebates on an electric vehicle. Well, if there are no further comments, looks like I'm going to give you back 15 minutes of your day. Again, any follow-up thoughts that develop in your mind over the course of the rest of the day of the week regarding our FBA updates or the climate pollution reduction grant process, please feel free to reach out to me in our office and by email or by phone call, and I'd be happy to talk to you or converse with you about any of this work. I appreciate all of your participation today. Our next meeting, as Fran alluded to, is scheduled for the second Wednesday of May. So that would be May 14th, 2025. It will again be a Zoom meeting, a virtual meeting like this. Between now and then, again, please feel free to reach out about any of our environmental planning work here at MVRPC. And I wish you a good rest of your day.
Thank you.